welcome back to an unexpected art lesson. This week we are going to continue talking about getting into drawing. We've debunked some myths, we've looked at some of the masters, and even took a look at why now is the best time to get started with drawing. And I think now it's time to look at something a little bit more practical. Watson, how does someone get started drawing who does not have experience? Like, what does that first week look like as someone like, well, I have some experience, just very long time ago experience. How does this one go about getting a feel for drawing?
Well, there are a few ways you could always break into starting to draw. One would be life classes, but personally, as somebody who has been to several of those and has seen things that he will never unsee, I would say start with a pencil. And the most fundamental part of the pencil, which ironically enough is back when I first started to draw, I didn't know about. Line weight. Kind of the basics of how you can start making pieces look interesting, give them energy, is by varying the line weight that you are using when drawing. First off, your bog standard pencil, a 2B or an HB pencil, is great. HB is kind of your middle of the road pencil, while 2B would be a softer lead, which means that it is able to make softer lines and a little bit easier for smudging to create a gradient effect, but we're going to get into that later. So with that though, is line weight is your secret weapon that most beginners oddly overlook, myself included. It is what you can use to switch off between these flat, lifeless drawings and stuff that seems to have like weight, and it lets your art breathe a little bit better.
Breathing is important though. If my page literally starts to physically breathe, I am going to run away screaming.
Yeah, you should not sketch in the Necronomicon. I've done it once. Didn't go well.
I had better luck when I tried it the second time.
A simple starting exercise, and again folks, just remember, start simple, work your way up. There's nothing wrong with starting on the easy end of the drawing challenges. So, pick a simple object around your house. An apple, a coffee mug, phone, a cat toy if you have a cat that doesn't really play with them, cat if they like to sleep a lot. But whatever the item you choose, prepare to draw it 3 times. On your first run, draw it using just these very light, sketchy lines. Don't press too hard onto the paper. Basically, just make it look almost ephemeral. You would only need to use the barest of pressure on the pencil to illustrate these things, so you don't have to try too hard. The second pass, put average. So say you're writing down a phone number or scribbling notes in class. This would probably be a similar level of pressure than what you would use for your second pass. Again, you're going to notice that the line work is a little bit stronger. Also, don't try to make as many light, sketchy lines. Try to have the item you're drawing created of a single or a more singular line work to notice the difference between the light sketchiness of the first piece and this piece.
So, draw it like a kindergarten poster or sticker or like those like very young little kid, the apple where it's just this little red blob with a little stick and then the leaf. Like, simple. Don't need to draw the details unless you want to. You can draw a little worm coming out of the apple if you want. Keep it simple. You don't have to outdraw an expert. Just draw a little guy.
Exactly. And once you have completed that first and second pass, either if you are using an HB pencil, make sure you're pressing more firmly to get a darker line, or if you've got a 2B pencil handy, switch to that, and you'll notice again, this time the line is going to be a lot more solid, it will look a lot more filled out, And much like the second pass, ensure that this time around you are trying to create a singular line. Don't try to do the entire apple or whatever item in a single pass, but think about where you can lift your pencil from the page and then continue the drawing. You'll notice that the heavy lines seem to come a lot more forward, while the lighter lines recede into the piece. This is how line weight would actually help illustrate how your eye would see each particular piece.
It adds depth to the drawing, and I know sometimes when I've watched people sketching things, they'll start with these very thin, lighter lines and then go over it. And I've done this too, where I would sketch with the pencil and then kind of go over it with a pen. And sometimes there'd be remnants of the pencil sketch behind that. It added a little bit of depth to it.
That's perfect. This is what would help bring the eye to that drawing. For example, Chris Saunders uses this technique a lot in his work. His character outlines always have these just big, bold lines that they define the main form, but lighter for the internal details. So while the leg is using those solid, confident lines,
you have thinner lines for a crease in the pants or where the pocket is or something to show that someone's got their arms bent.
Folds in clothing!
Yes. But you don't even need to add a lot of folds or wrinkles to make it start to feel more realistic, even if you are sticking with a very cartoon approach. It makes it feel more real. Because if someone is sitting crisscross applesauce, their pants are not going to be completely smooth. There's going to be folds and wrinkles. Speaking as someone who sits like that far more than I should, to the point that it makes my hips hurt.
I perch on my feet and my hands just kind of hang off to the side, and even then, certain lines or certain pieces of my clothing will be definitely more accentuated to others.
All I know is my hips are starting to get mad at me, and I'm like, but I like sitting all pretzel. I don't shrimp when I'm riding my pretzel. Which I sit with my legs crossed, which is, again, why I think my hips are a little grumpy at me today. And I'm like, yeah, I know I'm 30. I still don't want to deal with that. But I'm still gonna sit like that when I'm drawing, probably. Let's be real. Yeah, those thinner, lighter lines can add detail, and outside of just drawing the folds in clothing, you can add more detail on top of that. Using thinner lines, show the way the hair is resting, or if someone's got a necklace, or if you could even use the finer lines to add texture, but being able to sort of balance the weight of those lines allows you to create different depth and weight to the drawing. And that's something that you can start simple and build up on.
That is, and don't take Chris Saunders or any of our examples as the perfect example for line art or line weight. Search out other artists, see which artists' styles resonate with you. That is what will also help you define your own style, but honestly, to begin, stick with the recommended artists just because it's a little bit easier to kind of have that foundation.
Yeah, and you can probably, I would be surprised if there weren't countless other ways that you can practice different line weights and different approaches to it, because art is subjective. Everyone has their own different styles, so there's going to be different approaches to it. So, say we take a couple of days to practice line weight, what do we do next?
Then you get to step your game up, as it were, a little bit. This is where we're going to start moving into gestural drawing. So this is a tradition that artists everywhere kind of do as their warm-up approach, or at least some type of a warm-up. the idea is that you would be working on a figure in a particular pose. You would draw it within a certain time frame, and depending on the time frame, you would then take additional steps to add in more line weight or details. But the more interesting thing is this is where Kim Jung-ji's approach really becomes accessible to beginners. Gesture is not about accuracy. Getting the form right and the proportions right, of course, is relevant, but the idea is that you are capturing the essence of movement and energy. So if the person is sitting crisscross, those are the bits that you want to convey in the art.
Or drawing someone making a motion, like if maybe you're looking to draw someone and they're like talking with their hands. I say as I talk with my hands, because I can't not talk with my hands. Adding in the detail now that we can better create the shape and the depth to show the motion and the movement and what's going on to add a little bit more life to the drawing.
Precisely. For this particular exercise, again, go online, find reference photos of people in action, sports, dancing, walking, posing. There are countless resources online that do offer free reference pictures. We will, of course, feature some in our social media for the most useful sets.
Deposit Photos has a lot of stock art. You can probably pretty much local news, social media will have pictures of people in action, people around the community celebrating different events. You could go on Canva and look things up and get a bunch of different references that you can base off of. You've probably got pictures yourself you can use. The options are limitless. Just do take care of what you're typing in the search bar when you're Googling, because there's some interesting things on the internet, and you don't want to see something you can't unsee. But the resources are absolutely out there.
I will agree. Use safe search wisely.
Don't be like Watson. Don't see the things that cannot be unseen.
No. There be madness out there. But for now, once you've found those photos that you are liking, or the photos or references that you want to start with, set a timer for 30 seconds for drawing. Now, this is one of those things that is going to take time for you to get more comfortable with. You need to use your whole arm, not just your wrist, for when you're making these marks. This is what actually will help you create stronger line art, is not just using your wrist, because if you just use your wrist, you're going to create these very scratchy lines like what you did in part 1 of the pencil exercises. There is a time and place for being able to make those sketchy kind of initial pre-drawings, but for now, try to use your full arm, just because this is how you get into the habit of making stronger lines.
And this is also why most artists will have graphite smudges up their entire arm, because just as you're drawing and trying to add more weight and get the angle of a certain thing just right, there's going to get smudges.
I have removed graphite from my beard more than once. I'm not even sure how that became a thing.
You get it on your hand and then you touch your beard.
Yeah, I just realized there's that habit right there. All right. Another mystery solved thanks to art.
Woo!
And then what you are going to do from here is you focus on the main line of action. So, much like Shane Glein's entire theory of the S-curve, this imaginary line runs through the entire pose. Often it'll kind of be along the center of the body, or it could even be along the back, the shoulders. This is what shows that action. So think about when you're seeing a comic book and a character is throwing a punch. You're going to notice the action that shows the force of that punch, or the direction that the character is moving when throwing said punch.
just looking at the body when you throw a punch that goes all the way, like, from your fist through your arm, like, into your shoulder, and it could also impact your upper torso. That would be the main line of the action. I have been mentally picturing people dancing, so that line would probably flow through the arms and then through the legs as well, or perhaps the skirt that the woman is wearing, or just their clothing, or how that accentuates the motion. Thinking about what the person doing that motion would be thinking. What would they be focusing on that can play into the art as well? Because if you know how the dancer is thinking about her body as she dances, that'll help you know where to focus on things, or maybe how to present certain things.
Very well described.
What should we focus on capturing in these quick drawings?
Well, Brianna, you did sum up everything quite magnificently, but I'll summarize for you. The key things that you would want to ensure are captured in your line work is the flow of the spine, weight distribution, so which foot is bearing that weight. So, example, dancing, there's always going to be one foot that's going to be more carrying more weight than the other. If anybody is actually drawing a pose where both the weight is balanced on both feet, I have so many questions, but I can't think of any right now. The overall energy and direction. So again, that punch, that dance step, where is the body going? And finally is the major angles of shoulders and hips.
Where's the body moving, and where's everything else moving in response to that? Whatever you're doing, your shoulders and your hips are going to be doing something, even if you're not paying attention to it.
Exactly. Unless, well, you're dancing and you're not sure what you're doing, then, well, even then your body will be moving. It's just nobody's quite sure where or why. But still, there is method to the madness. Once you've kind of got a good feel for the gesture drawing, you're going to then once again push yourself a little bit more. Days 5 to 7 is going to be construction and basic shapes. However, there's going to be a little bit of a twist on that. So this is where Shane Blind's approach really does help shine. So study things like Batman Beyond, his S-Curve books, anything he's worked on will have some lovely illustrations on kind of where those shapes play into it. So this particular exercise is, well, called Everything is Made of Cylinders. Start it off. Draw a simple cylinder, like a can, Pringles jar, whatever. While you're drawing said cylinder, vary the line weight, so heavier for the edges closest to you, lightest for farther away. This is what will help change your art from just being flat to a more three-dimensional piece. Now, once you understand the cylinders, much like the Matrix, there is no spoon, but there is. You will see these cylinders everywhere. Arms, legs, tree trunks, stuffed dinosaurs, bottles.
There is no escape. The cylinders are everywhere, and they're watching you.
Resistance is circular. Key idea is, much like how Blinds puts his work together with those basic shapes, and then he improves with the details, you're going to be doing the same thing. So draw these objects as cylinders first, then add the details to flesh them out. With that bottle, you're going to draw the cylinder first, then you're going to add the details to the bottle. And of course, altering your line weight closer and farther, specific details that you would like to draw the viewer's eye to.
Or you could just, if you're drawing a soda can, you got the shape, now draw the label.
Details of the can, the names, the brand, these are all things that you can experiment with the line weight on. If you're drawing a can with the heavier line work, you would use the lighter, sketchier lines if you wish to define things like the label. That way, the can looks like there's proper weight to it.
Yeah, and this all seems easily doable, And, like, you can get some pretty impressive drawings in a relatively short period of time. I mean, if you somehow manage to get to drawing very photorealistic things in the span of your first week of drawing, holy cow, who are you? Please introduce yourself. But otherwise, you can still make improvements. Figure out, get the hang of things, and then you can just improve and go from there. Like, build a learning plan, which is the next thing that Watson has written down. Watson does a fantastic job of setting up all the notes for these. Just FYI for the listeners, I guide entirely based on Watson's notes. And then get distracted and then get us back on track using Watson's notes.
And, well, much like the ferret in the mosh pit, if I did not have these, I'd be mostly bouncing around and getting distracted by shiny objects.
Same.
Once you have survived the first week of learning to draw, hooray! Now the fun begins. Or at least more work begins, one or the other. This is expanding and building upon the initial plans, the initial kind of exercises that we've done. So week 1 to 2, pencil fundamentals. So this would be improving upon your line weight variation, working with different types of pencils to see what you're the most comfortable with. I know some people love working with just the woodless graphite pencils. Other people swear by mechanical pencils. This is something that it varies by artist to artist, and see what works for you. Again, there's no proper way to do this. Well, there's no proper tools that everyone can swear by. Once you have kind of got that line weight variation knocked down, then you can move on to more 30-second gesture drawings. I personally do around 10 to 20 a day, but then again, I'm also a masochist, so...
Aren't all artists?
Yeah, we don't like ourselves.
We just like to make our lives just a little bit more complicated than they necessarily need to be, but let's be real, none of us regret it. This is what keeps us sane while also driving us crazy.
I am the patron saint of ice skating uphill.
Oh, falling while doing that would be so uncomfortable. That would be tragic. That'd be a bad time.
I'm just thinking the entire process of sliding back down, going ow, 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 ow.
Yeah.
The first week of exercises continue on with the cylinder construction, but get more adventurous. So figure out how many cylinders is in something like a hand, or a particular pose, things like that. Work on building out whatever object you find with cylinders, and not only work out the cylinders, but improve upon it by adding the additional details, line weight, and everything that we've discussed from earlier. Once you get through that, pick a couple of objects around your house. I picked 5 just because that was likely the first key I hit when I pressed it, but...
Also, 5 is a number a lot of people default to just because it fits.
Huh!
Just the vibe is right. I'm sure there's a deeper psychological reason that most people default to 5 or things in sets of 5s. That or even numbers or things that end in 0. Brains are weird about numbers.
1 is the loneliest number that you ever do.
Thank you for listening to An Unexpected Art Lesson, the show where we talk about everything you didn't know about art. Stay tuned next week for further discussion of the truth about drawing and how to get started on your journey as an artist. If you like what we're doing, you can follow us on social media and join the conversation over at An Unexpected Art Lesson on Threads, Blue Sky, and Substack. And you can also support us over on Patreon. Get early access to episodes and other fun things at patreon.com/anunexpectedartlesson.